Now, M.O.D.O.K is a character who is very interesting in the comics. Well, yes, he has an appearance that is pretty funny. In comic form, it definitely works. Especially because he's not the only character in the comics who has a very distinct look that is, well, his look is very distinct. But there are other characters who have things such as this. For example, there's Ruby Thursday, who has a random red ball for a head. There's a couple characters named Orb, who have just a giant eyeball for a head. So a guy with just a big head isn't really that surprising. However, when it comes to bringing him into live action, that's entirely a different conversation, because you have to appeal to modern day audiences, not just comic book fans. And a lot of people are probably not going to get behind a giant talking head. It's also probably the reason why he has yet to appear in live action until recently. Well, technically it hasn't come out yet, but you know what I mean, because we've seen the trailer, because I'm counting that technically, as that in itself was live action. The character was intended to be an Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., but that didn't happen. The character is one of Marvel's most famous villains, so it's pretty surprising he hasn't appeared in the MCU yet. And I'm willing to bet the main reason why is his appearance. It is really hard to get behind, like I said. For hardcore comic book fans, it's something that a lot of us has just accepted. Because it's something that I personally am okay with it. I actually really like the idea. I think it's really cool. Because it makes him look distinct when it comes down to other villains. However, like I said, some modern audiences might not think the exact same thing as we do. In fact, I'm pretty sure some people who are hardcore comic book fans also don't even think that. Meaning, like I said, it is going to be a very hard transition from comics to live action. But they're doing it, and we have to watch it. Okay, I'm saying that in a very negative way. I don't mean to, because I'm actually excited. But you know what I mean. It's going to be difficult for certain people to get on board. Now, as of late, a lot of Marvel fandom has been kind of turning against each other. Personally, I still like the MCU. In fact, I thought Wakanda Forever was better than most MCU movies I've ever seen. Yet, because of Love and Thunder, Multiverse of Madness, things haven't been going so well. Which is where I do agree with the other side. They were disappointing to me. Even if I thought both movies had something in I found myself liking, for the most part, it did let me down. Now, a while ago, we got a photo of Ant-Man the Wasp Quantumania's M.O.D.O.K, where we saw that he has a metal mask looking robotic, and we saw this very design in the trailer. Personally, I like it a lot. I think it really just changes enough to make the character still distinct, but while also making him look a little less silly, as the character in live action, like I said, probably wasn't going to work well. However, a lot of people didn't think it was a good idea to change the character from the comics, because a lot of people dislike the character to be changed. Personally, I'm up to the idea of changing things from the source material. As long as it works, I'm up for it. And when I say it works, it has to actually make sense for the change. And it also depends on what the change is. But this change, in my opinion, I thought it was a good idea. Then we get a photo of him without the mask, and personally, I think he looks pretty okay as M.O.D.O.K. Yes, I know that he does look a little stupid, but he's M.O.D.O.K. You can't really get rid of the big head. Because once you get rid of the big head, he's no longer M.O.D.O.K. Now, it does seem like he's going to be wearing the mask most often in the movie, but personally, I'll be able to see him without it, even if I do prefer him with it. He's just someone you can't really do in live action without him actually looking kind of silly. Which might be a problem for some people. Which actually already has become one. Which is fine, because different people have different opinions. But something that I need to actually point out here is the same people who are upset of him not looking like his comic book self, or not as much as his comic book self, are now mad that he does. Now, there are some fans who have chosen another design over the other. But there are also a lot of comic book YouTubers who are just outright hating it, and hating the other one too. But entirely different reasons. Some people hate the robot M.O.D.O.K because it doesn't look like himself. But they dislike the actual M.O.D.O.K who looks like himself because he does look like himself. It just comes across like you're hating it because you just want to hate it. Which, I'm not saying you can't hate it, but it does feel a little over the top to hate both and complain about it and not looking like M.O.D.O.K, and then they actually make him look like M.O.D.O.K, and then you hate it because he does look like him. Now, I'm not going to be naming any actual names who those YouTubers are because they're also pretty big and they're not going to see this. And I also, if they did, I don't want drama. It's just something that I've really noticed a while ago that keeps on coming back. And I think this is a very good example of that. That there are some people just who aren't going to be pleased. Which is fine because, like I said, you don't have to like it. It's just odd to complain about something and for them to actually fix it and then continue to complain about them fixing what you complained about. And M.O.D.O.K is a character who is definitely not going to be able to transition into live action easily. And I do have to admit, I think they are doing their best in the way that they're doing it because there really is no easy way to transition a big head into live action. But on a more positive note, or what I think is a positive note, we know that M.O.D.O.K is actually Darren Cross from the first movie, having survived the end of the first movie by ending up in the quantum realm of a big head. Personally, I really like that update. It makes the character have an actual reason to why he has a big head, because in the comics, there's never really been one. It's just that AIM wanted to give him one. Which, I'm not complaining, because M.O.D.O.K has a very iconic design. But in the rules of the MCU, typically there's more reasoning behind things, and I think this reason behind why M.O.D.O.K has a big head makes sense to me. It also creates M.O.D.O.K in a way where you don't have to do his whole weird origin in the comics, which is a little complicated at times because it incorporates AIM, Iron Man, and the Mandarin, which are things and elements that have already been used in the MCU that have already passed and gone. So I think it's a very good way to restructure M.O.D.O.K as an Ant-Man villain, which he isn't really in the comics. I mean, I guess he's fought Ant-Man before, but he doesn't, fight Ant-Man only. He's typically fighting Iron Man. But that's it. Like always, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.